This season for the LA Lakers is safe to say was a disappointment, and in today's video, I'm going to basically explaining why this transpired to be such a bad season for the Lakers and what was the main problem, who is really to blame. Now, if you aren't aware, the Lakers just missed the play-in after having one of the highest expectations this season. After having LeBron and Anthony Davis, they added former MVP Russell Westbrook along with a bunch of other veteran pieces, and it's safe to say that did not pan out. I know a lot of people, including me, had high expectations for them, and even if you didn't, a lot of people thought that the fit wouldn't be great. But I don't think anyone was expecting them to be this bad, having a worse record against teams like the San Antonio Spurs, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Washington Wizards, and so forth. And there has to be some sort of reason for that. And I'm just going to be a quick recap of the downfall of the Lakers season. But before we start, it turns out in the last month, 95% of you guys watching aren't even subscribed to the channel, and that is just a lot, and a lot more than it needs to be. So if you enjoy the content, please consider hitting that red subscribe button. And without further ado, let's just get into it. I first want to talk about the person that in the national media gets probably the most blame. His lowlights go all over Twitter, and the guy that really just started, really made the Lakers downfall, and Russell Westbrook. Now, Russell Westbrook got traded here, and they traded a lot to get him. That is a huge mistake. I will admit that. Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Kyle Kuzma have been playing really well, along with picks that ended up turning to Isaiah Jackson and stuff. But he does not deserve all the blame that he gets. People think that he's trash and that he is not that good anymore, and he just, the reason the Lakers were so bad was because of him. But to be honest, he is the only one, or one of the only ones, that goes hard every single night. Half the time he has to play with scrubs, washed up old heads, and he is declining. He's getting up there in age. He's the same. Nothing has really changed. It feels a little weird to say, and you might not get this, but nothing has really changed from his MVP season to now. He's gotten less athletic. His three-point shot, that was an anomaly of a season for Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has never been a good shooter. That season, he was a pretty solid shooter. He's gotten back to normal. He's lost his athleticism, and it just wasn't not a good fit for Westbrook. And yes, he did not have a good season. He turned the ball over a lot, and he just did not fit well. And a lot of people, you might see some of the top of the backboard shots, the careless turnovers, and the breakdowns on defense. But there's also, he played hard, harder than most players on the Lakers, and he really cared. I could definitely see it. The way he kind of approached it was not the best. He didn't really get what was asked of him, what people wanted him to do. But I'm just going to admit, Russell Westbrook does not deserve the most blame for those Lakers season. Next, I want to talk about the supposedary secondary star who is probably only there for half the games. And he only played half the games this season, and that is Anthony Davis. And I'm going to be completely honest, Anthony Davis was not what they wanted to be this season. He is, in my opinion, one of the more overrated star players in the league, and we just know what you expect from him. Every single fall, something bad happens. He misses. I know people call him Data Davis. He's weak to Davis because he misses weeks and he misses important games. And he's not trustworthy. His defense is great. It's not only just the fact that he got injured. His offense this season wasn't that great. He didn't shoot it nearly as good. He wasn't as physical on the low block. Part of the reason because he's so injury prone. His defense is still great, but he is just not the secondary offensive guy that you want to be. And Russell Westbrook was not that this season. It's safe to say it's not a bad thing to say that Russell Westbrook is not at his MVP level. It's 6 years from now. He was in his prime, now he is not. Anthony Davis is supposed to be in his prime. It was supposed to be his team. Once LeBron's getting older, Anthony Davis was going to take over the load, and he just hasn't been that. And this was his worst season in a while. Actually, his last season was also pretty bad too. But like on the high expectation for the Lakers, just a disappointment, and Anthony Davis was a big part of that just because he was still good, but he just wasn't as good as you want him to be. You basically have 3 All-Stars in your team, and Anthony Davis, for most of the season, just didn't play like it. Next, I want to talk about the head coach, the coach that just got fired a couple days ago, and that is Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel had a really good run for the Lakers championship, and he's pretty much been a pretty solid coach overall. But this season, rotations were just such all over the place. I don't blame him completely, but I really gotta say that some of the guys that showed flashes in the last game of the season, some of the guys that play with the heart, they should have just played more. Trusting guys like Kent Bazemore and Wayne Ellington and Dwight Howard. You had DeAndre Jordan playing big-time minutes when he just wasn't an NBA player anymore. Like, this is not you. It's time to realize you put Russell Westbrook in the worst type of fits. You had I think there was a lineup where you had Anthony Davis. You had Anthony Davis. You had Dwight Howard. You had DeAndre Jordan. You had Dwight and DeAndre playing together. You had Rondo, Isaiah Thomas, and Russell Westbrook playing together. Like, these are just some things that as a coach you should know better. And this is the perfect example. They had the most starting lineups in the league. They started with 39 starting lineups. Like 25 players started for them. And even guys like that barely came and went. Rondo, Isaiah Thomas, DJ Augustine, Wendy and Gabriel. But some of the guys like Austin Reeves, Malik Monk, see some flashes of THT and Wendy and Gabriel and Stanley Johnson. Like, these guys played really solid in the minutes that they were given. It just took so long to realize it. And this is just not a great coaching season for Frank Vogel. Reason why he got fired. I still believe that there is a good coaching mindset inside Frank Vogel, and we'll get to the person that I think, or the part that I think is really, really to blame. But it's not fully Frank Vogel, but he definitely did have a big part of it because he just wasn't the best coach this year. I'm going to spend a brief time talking about the king, LeBron James. LeBron James had an incredible season this year, I just got to say. He was one of the best scorers in the league, and he really had to carry this Lakers through some tough times, even when he was when he had some missed time. But I do got to put some blame, or like a little bit, on LeBron, just because he might get clowned out on Twitter and stuff, but legit might be a little bit of a real thing, and he got some of his buddies, some of his guys, and guys that he thought would make a good team, which it just wasn't. So it's basically he played part GM, and for some reason, and he definitely had a say in all this, because it's LeBron James. And obviously, this Lakers team didn't work out, and it is because roster construction. But LeBron James did have a little bit of a factor in it, but also you get more positive than negative this season with LeBron because LeBron was still an amazing All-NBA player this year. But the main thing I really want to talk about, the main red flag, is the front office. GM Rob Pelinka this season was not very good. Let's talk about some of the moves. First off, the Russell Westbrook trade just didn't make sense. The fact that you bought Russell Westbrook along with another high usage guy like LeBron, you had him to play the third option and then half the time also play with the bench guys, old washed up guys where he had to carry the unit when he was declining. I think that was apparent. And the fact that all your wing depth, a lot of your guys, Kuzma, KCP, was Montrez, who wasn't that great, but he was still been better than a lot of the big men on they've had. Really believing in THT, but Alex Caruso giving him up, that's the big thing for me. Alex Caruso would have been the perfect guy for this team. He would just been perfect. If he was still on this team, the Lakers would be so much better. Getting all these older guys like they did, they had such a good chemistry, and just a good roster when they won the championship. But this year, it just wasn't. It just making some moves that didn't make a ton of sense. And it was the roster fit. It was the roster construction. The guys on the roster. It really just didn't make sense. It was not supposed to succeed, and I just feel dumb knowing that I had this team as a top 2 seed in the Western Conference, because this team should not have been very good this year, because the fits weren't that the fit wasn't that good, especially with Russell Westbrook, especially since the guys, you missing out on DeMar DeRozan when he wanted to come to LA, you basically not getting Buddy Hield. It just really wasn't the best look. I personally, as much as I hate to say it, Lakers fans, what do you think of the Fire Poeltl? Like, what do you really think of Fire Poeltl? He had his moments, he had some good rosters, but just really, like, it's time to move on. It is just time to move on. I know it's been one season, but nothing is going to change. I know LeBron said that just recently, like, the reason they failed this season because they weren't on the damn floor together. But that's truly not only it. And this big three has got to just find, like, if it's not gonna work. It's just not leading to a championship or not even a playoff spot. Now, what you do is, like, the real question, because, I mean, Russell Westbrook has a big contract, and you really can't trade him, or I wouldn't, if I'm another NBA team, I would not want to trade for Russell Westbrook. The only reason why I want to trade for Russell Westbrook with the money that he has, if it's an expiring deal and you don't want to bring him back. Other than that, Russell Westbrook, I gotta say, I don't see a team that wants to trade for Russell Westbrook, and if they do, they're giving up just a bag of chips. Okay, Russell Westbrook is not worth a bag of chips, but no team would really use him right now. So he's probably stuck here. Anthony Davis' value is at an all-time low. How much do you really want to risk for Anthony Davis? And the Lakers aren't going to get, like, not much for Anthony Davis, because we know how good Anthony Davis can be. And a lot of these guys, they're on veteran minimums. But do you really trust Poeltl to make a competent roster and a good roster around these big three if they stay? And how are you going to get rid of them? It's just a big question mark. It's going to be an interesting team to follow in the offseason. And in my opinion, that's what really went wrong with the Lakers this season. The whole thing was roster construction, and there was some bad things with the players. And I just got to give it up. The role players weren't that good this season. But that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. But really happy with the LA Lakers breaking in a 13-minute video. And I will see you next time. Peace.